Okay, today we're talking about finding the mean, variance, and standard deviation. Okay, some of you that are taking AP Stats next year or Stats, this is a preview to some of the stuff you might be learning, or that actually you will be learning. Okay, so definitions. These are things you need to know. First thing is that data is basically just a set of values or scores. Okay, mean is always the average. I always remember that because it's mean that you have to do so much work and you have to add up and divide, and that's how I remembered that mean is the average. Okay? Yes, that's what we're talking about today. Okay, and then there is variance. Variance tells you how spread out the scores are, and this actually is a little bit of work. And this is how you find the variance. First, you have to find the mean, your average. Okay? Hopefully you're paying attention right now while I'm talking because this is new information. Jewel, engage. Okay. You have to find the mean average first. Okay? Once you do that, and that's pretty easy. You guys know how to find the average. Then, for each score in the data, you then subtract the score and the mean. So if you look here, okay, this is how we find the variance, okay? This is your data right here, 4, 7, 3, and 2. You with me? So to find the average, or the mean, they add them all up and divide by 4 because there's 4 numbers. Yes? And so we got that the average, or the mean right there, is 4. Okay? So then for each of these numbers, 4, 7, 3, and 2, you take that number, the original number, and you subtract the mean. Okay, so for the first number, which in my set of data is 4, I'm going 4 minus 4, which is 0. My next number is 7, so I do 7 minus 4, which is 3. 3 minus 4 is negative 1, and 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Okay?
So it would be the, like the 4, 7, 3, 2 first, and then the mean?
Yes. So your original number first, and then you subtract the mean.
It always has to be like that, right?
Yes. Okay. So then once you do that, then you are going to step 3. You're going to square each one of the differences you got in step 2. So right here, see how my difference is, these numbers right here? We're going to square all of them, which ends up making all of them positive. Okay, so right here, when you square 0, you get 0. When you square 3, you get 9. When you square negative 1, you get 1. And when you square negative 2, you get 4. Okay? Then, so now that we have these numbers, and we'll recap this. Let's just recap it real quick. The first thing we did is we got the mean, the average of the original numbers. Then we took all of our original numbers and we subtracted the mean. And we got these. Then we squared these numbers to get these numbers. Okay? Now you're going to take the average of these. So again, you're going to add all those numbers up together. So 0 plus 9 plus 1 plus 4. And there was 4 numbers, so I divide by 4 and I get 3.5. So that is your variance. The variance is 3.5. It is a lot of work. Okay, so the variance is 3.5. And then the last thing you have is your standard deviation. Your standard deviation gives you the average distance from the mean. To find your standard deviation, all you have to do is take the square root of the variance. So on this last problem, we got the variance was 3.5, correct? So then in order to do the standard deviation, all you have to do is take the square root of 3.5 in your calculator, and you get your standard deviation is 1.87.
So would you recommend we round or just what case do we round? Yeah.
Good question. Let's just round to the hundredths place unless it tells you differently. Okay? Okay, so here is another problem, and then we'll do like a problem from our homework together. Okay? So example 3. You and your friends have just measured the heights of your dogs, because that's something fun that you guys always go around doing. I know. Okay. All right. Okay. So your dogs are 32 inches, 43 inches, 30 inches, and 15 inches. Okay? So that's your data, right? Your next step is to find the mean. How do we find the mean? You add them all up together, so they added those and divided by 4 because there was 4 numbers. If there were 5 numbers, we would divide by 5. Okay, and so they got the mean as 30. That means that the average height is 30 for these dogs. Okay? So then for the variance, who remembers what we do for the variance without looking?
You get the numbers, subtract.
Good, you subtract all of them from your original. So write your original scores down. So we have like our originals, 32, 43, 30, 15. And then on all those, I'm going to subtract 30. I'm subtracting my mean. When we subtract, I get these numbers, 2, 13, 0, negative 15. And then who remembers without looking, what do you do once you get those numbers? You square them. So I square them. And we get these numbers. And then what do we do? You add them and take the average again. So we add down 4 plus 169 plus 0 plus 225 equals 398. Divided by 4 is 99.5, which is our variance. And then I think the easiest one is your standard deviation, but you have to do all of this work in order to do your standard deviation. Okay? And all you have to do is take the square root of 99.5, and this one is approximately 10 for the standard deviation. So yeah, well, it'll tell you in the problem. But your last step, if they ask you a standard deviation, which is the square root of your variance. Okay? But basically, in order to get your standard deviation, you would have to do all of that work. You have to find your variance in order to get the standard deviation. The variance. The mean and the standard deviation. Yeah, those three things. Do you guys have any questions for this? Okay. Let's go ahead and do a problem from your homework together. So I'm going to go ahead. We'll do this still in like that I'm recording in the notes. So we have number 1 here on your worksheet. You have 15 problems. So if you want to get out a blank piece of paper to start your homework, we're going to do this problem together. Oh, and if you notice, these are asking you to go to the nearest tenth. Tenth is how many decimal places? 1 decimal place. Okay. This is it, yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry, you couldn't see what I was talking about. Okay, so we're going to do number 1. You might want to get a calculator if you don't have one. Okay. Now, I realize that writing some of this stuff out might be annoying. So, I'm not necessarily going to make you write everything because you can do a lot of it in your calculator. So, how am I going to find the mean? What do I do? Add them. So, I'm going to go 2 plus 2 plus 4 plus 6 plus 7 plus 9 equals, this is what I want you to write. 30, because that's all of that added together. 30. Thank you for being quiet while we're doing this. And how many numbers? There are 6. So I'm writing 30 divided by 6. And what is 30 divided by 6? 5. Okay, so what does 5 represent? Mean. I would write that to remind myself. Okay, I just found the mean. Okay? Because you're going to see these words when you take your test. And the more you write them and say them, you'll remember, oh, that's how I find this. Okay, so our mean was adding them, dividing by 6. Okay, what's my next step? Okay, so I'm going to start by writing all of my original numbers down, okay? So we have 2, 2, 4, 6, 7, and 9. And then what am I going to do with all those numbers? I'm going to subtract 5, so I'm just going to go down and write minus 5.
Do you have to repeat the 2 notes?
Yes, because that's still a data. You know what I mean? It's like having 2 dogs with the same height. They're going to be included, okay? All right, so then we go through, and 2 minus 5 is negative 3. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. 4 minus 5 is 6 minus 5 is 7 minus 5 is, and 9 minus 5 is 4. Okay, once I subtract all those, what do I do next? Nope. Square them. So I'm just going to keep those numbers like that and square them. I'm not going to rewrite them again because that would be a waste of my time. Okay. We don't want to waste your time because it's very valuable. Okay, so negative 3 squared is 9. And all these should end up being positives because when you square negative, it becomes a positive. Okay, so we have another 9. We have 1, 1, 4, and 16. Okay, so what's our next step now?
Add them all together.
Good, add them all together. So 9 plus 9 plus 1 plus 1 plus 4 plus 16. Is it 39 or 40? 40, okay. So we add all that together and I get 40, and I'm taking 40 and I'm dividing it by 6 because I have 6 numbers still. So 40 divided by 6 on my calculator, 40 divided by 6 equals 6.666. So we would round that to 6.7 because they said round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so this equals what? What did I just find? My variance. And again, I recommend you writing this down so it reminds you, oh, this is how I find the variance. Because again, when you get to the test, it's going to ask you a question like find the variance, and you need to remember which one it is that you're doing. So just getting the numbers might not make it click unless you write this is the variance, okay? All right, so B is done, and then C, standard deviation. Who remembers how I find standard deviation? Good, you take the square root of your variance, so the square root of 6.7. So, in your calculator, we go, where is my square root button? Nope, that's not what I wanted. Oh, I see it. There it is. Okay, square root of 6.7, which is 2.58, which would round to be 2.6. And what is that? Standard deviation. Okay, and we are done with number 1.